What's up guys, Time Reaction here. Realme's 8 Pro is a phone that was kinda like a very minor update to last year's Realme 7 Pro, but then the pricing is set in the very competitive segment. And now it's been 3 months since the 8 Pro has been launched, and right now the 20,000 Indian rupees price range is very much crowded, and hence is the Realme 8 Pro a good option to consider even now will be a doubt in many's mind. And this video is all about that. Well, before checking the core factors and thereby coming to a conclusion, let's first check the price of the 8 Pro, and here as you can see, the Realme 8 Pro has two variants and the base one's pricing is 18,000 Indian rupees while the top variant's pricing is 20,000 Indian rupees. And here with these two variants, the difference is just with the RAM. So now that we have an idea about the pricing, let's dig deep in to figure out how well the Realme 8 Pro does during day-to-day usage. And here as you can see, the design is nothing to brag about, and in fact on a visual appeal basis, Realme has kinda spoiled the looks with this unwanted dare to leap texting. Does anyone prefer this bold writing on their phone? Well, I certainly prefer a cleaner look, but if you are not concentrating on this writing, the rest of the design is good for the segment. Materials used are not premium because it's a fully plastic body with glass on the front, but here Realme has put the phone together in a neat manner, and hence there isn't flex or gap formation, and also the buttons, they all still provide good feedback. Now here a highlighting thing with the design is the slimness. The phone is just 8.1 mm thick, and actually it looks much more slimmer because of the curved back, and that curve does provide a lot of comfort while holding the phone. And also since the weight of the phone is just 176 grams, even while we used the phone for an extended period of time, there wasn't any fatigue. And here one more key thing to notice that the back portion has a matte texture which does hide the fingerprints and smudges, and also scratches are minimal even after 3 months of usage. So that's a plus, but here this texture is very smooth and hence the phone is slippery. You will get used to the texture in the long run, but when you initially start using the phone, you will have to be a bit careful. And if in case you're into cases, well, the phone does come with a case in box, so you can use that, or maybe you can get a third-party case too because a lot of cheap options are available in market. Well, that's all about the design, and you're after using this phone for this long. The good thing about this design is the way it has aged, and also the in-hand feel is something that's done well too. But then by slapping this dare to leap writing and trying to make the design unique, well, Realme has kinda spoiled the overall appeal. And I really wish Realme will in future either stop this pattern or maybe offer some colors without this writing. So that's about the design and build quality, and now let's focus on the display and audio. And this is an area where manufacturers nowadays has taken a big leap. Because nowadays, phones selling in the 20,000 Indian rupees range will probably offer an AMOLED display which will be Full HD in resolution, and also the refresh rate will be high. And here most of those things are checked in the Realme 8 Pro except the higher refresh rate stuff. Well, is that a bad thing? Certainly not, but then based on a comparison point of view, you will notice the difference. Because the Redmi Note 10 Pro has a 120Hz AMOLED display, and that's a big blow for this Realme 8 Pro. But keeping that thing aside, well, this 6.4-inch display in the Realme 8 Pro is a good one. Viewing angles are fine, and the peak brightness level this display can reach is excellent, and also the colors, they look very sharp. The only thing to note with this display is that, out of the box, the display's tone was a bit on the cooler side, but here that can be tweaked to your liking, so it's not something to complain about. And here, even though the bottom chin is a bit thick, the experience while viewing content is very enjoyable. So in that regard, even though the display lacks the refresh rate advantage, it's overall a good one. But Realme actually missed the opportunity to provide a proper back support for the display from the audio side, because here the speaker used is just a single unit. And this bottom firing speaker, it's not the best too. It gets fairly loud, but the quality is not exceptional, so basically the loudspeaker side is a letdown. But then if you have a wired headphone with you, well, you can connect that because the phone does have a good quality 3.5mm jack. And if in case you're in the Bluetooth train, well, the Bluetooth version in the Realme 8 Pro is Bluetooth 5 and its connection does stay strong with not much disconnection issues. So in these regard, the audio side can be covered. And also about the earpiece, well, it's a good one, so if you're into making a lot of calls, you'll enjoy the calling experience. So from all this, well, with the display and audio, right now the display can be given a rating of 4 out of 5 when compared with the competition, and also the audio side can be given a 2.5 rating out of 5 if it's the loudspeaker audio. And these numbers should give you the idea. But since the display is a good one and also the audio side can be to an extent rectified with the headphones, I think you will be more interested to know the user experience, especially after a long-term usage. And about that, well, even now the Realme 8 Pro is holding well and actually the experience is still nice. Well, here the specifications are not very impressive, but still it's fine for the segment. The processor is the Snapdragon 720G and the GPU is Adreno 618. And here the RAM, which can be either 6GB or 8GB, is LPDDR4, and the 128GB storage is UFS 2.1, and this storage can be expanded because there is a dedicated SD card slot. And here while testing on Realme UI 2, which is based on Android 11, well, things are working well. If you're a normal user who does use the basic phone apps along with regular social media apps, well, they all work in a smooth and lag-free manner. For such kind of a usage, there isn't anything to complain. And in fact, even if that pattern is pushed to a bit more intense usage style like using the camera app a lot, and also if you're into playing moderately heavy games, well, even then the user experience doesn't get spoiled. These stuff also work well, and here if it's the Asphalt 9 that you're playing, well, the frame drops are not much noticeable. So the graphics performance is fine for games in this level, but if you want to play more intense ones, well, then you'll notice the CPU and GPU having a hard time to run things properly. But these issues are common with phones in this segment, and hence I feel even though Realme used an older processor, it's optimized in an adequately proper manner, and hence the performance and user experience after this long is good. Now about the heating thing, well, if you do some intense stuff for approximately 15 to 20 minutes, the area just below the camera section gets warm to touch, but it's not like overheating. So here, did Realme get away by using the same old chipset that they used in the 7 Pro? Well, to an extent that's correct, but then this does make this phone a not so special one. And by special, I'm not talking about a single band 5G offering, but instead if they've used a fairly new processor like maybe the Snapdragon 732G, along with a 90Hz refresh rate display panel, well then this phone would have been a true upgrade over the 7 Pro. And maybe then Realme could have convinced even more people to get this phone or even upgrade to this phone. But here nothing like that has happened. And the only strong pitch that they have is with the camera. And that is with this big number usage, which is a 108 megapixel Samsung HM2 primary camera, which has an aperture of f1.88. And accompanying this camera is 3 more cameras, where 2 are just marketing cameras because they are the no-use 2 megapixel ones, and hence the only usable secondary camera is a 8 megapixel ultra wide angle one, which has 119 degree field of view and an aperture of f2.25. And here this big number main camera is actually a good one. The shots have a very saturated tone and the sharpness is great. And since the details are well maintained, you can zoom in 3x times without loss in much of detailing. Now in almost every lighting scenario, this camera does a decent job, so let it be an overcast outdoor shot or a dull lit indoor shot, well the photos are very usable and surely it does stand well against its competitors. And actually this camera even does a neat job with video recording too. Max video resolution supported is 4K at 30 fps, and here I did record this video in 1080p at 60 fps, and even though there is an optical image stabilization, well the electronic image stabilization is good enough to keep the video jitter free, and also there wasn't much of an exposure shifting issue. Focusing does take a bit of time, but even then if you need to take a video memory, well this camera is a handy one for that. Now there are gimmick features like starry time-lapse video and more, but those are just one-time use ones, and in fact you won't probably use them. But then the ultra wide angle camera is something that we do rely a lot nowadays, and here this 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera is a fairly decent one. Ultra wide angle shots has the usual corner issues, but still if you need to capture a wider frame, well then you can make use of this camera to click the usable shots if the conditions are favorable. But then a disappointing area even in a very favorable scenario is the front camera. It's a 16 megapixel Sony IMX471 sensor which has an aperture of f2.45, but here the processing is bad. Even with all the beauty settings turned off, the selfies look very artificial. It's like a layer of beautification has been applied, and hence the skin tone looks so different. And hence I didn't like the selfie shots taken with this front camera. But then the videos from this front camera are actually better. Max resolution supported is 1080p video at 30 fps, and here the outcome is a fairly stable video which has a saturated tone with not much skin tone processing. So that's the camera situation in the Realme 8 Pro, and here the 108 megapixel hype is to an extent living up to the standards, and that's it. None of the other cameras are competing well, and in that too the front camera output is the major disappointment. But that said, an area where Realme has topped its competitors is with the battery and charging. The charger provided in box is a 65 watt charger, and this phone does support 50 watt charging, and if you do charge the 8 Pro with the included charger and cable, well it just takes approximately 50 minutes to fully charge the battery from 0%, and here the best part is that with an approx 15 to 17 minutes of charging, you can top around 50% of the 4000 mAh battery. And here since this phone doesn't have any power hungry specification, the battery backup was also good. With a moderately heavy usage, I usually get 6+ hours of screen on time, and if it's an average to minimum usage pattern, this battery will last 1.5 days. And here even though the phone does get a bit warm while charging, well it does cool down fairly quickly once you disconnect the charger. Then if in case you're wondering about the unlocking method, well it's Fingerprint Unlock and the scanner is an in-display scanner, and this one was a bit slow in the beginning, but after the updates and all, the speed is better and also the accuracy is in the 90% range. And about the other sensors, well every needed sensor is present except NFC, and about the Wi-Fi version, it's dual band Wi-Fi, and also a key thing to notice that sadly there isn't any form of water resistance available in the Realme 8 Pro. So from all this, well, after 3 months of usage, well, the 8 Pro is still holding fine, but with this phone, the main issue is its competitors. And right now for the price, even the base variant is selling. Well, I would suggest to surely check the other offerings like the Redmi Note 10 Pro or even the Pro Max, because they have a lot to offer than the Realme 8 Pro. I think Realme is getting a bit comfortable with the position they are in right now, and it's starting to look like they're getting a bit lazy with the upgrades. And if in case you are very much into Realme phones, well, the Realme X7 is actually a phone I'll prefer over the 8 Pro, because the X7 does have 5G support with like 4-band support, so it's a much more future-proof phone than the 8 Pro. Well, that's all for this video. Hope you liked it. If so, please don't forget to hit the like button, and also please do subscribe because you won't miss our future contents and it does help the channel a lot. See you again in the next one. Till then, bye.